Hello everyone, this is Matthew. Welcome again to one of my reading and writing video diaries. Today is April 27th, 2014, and this is volume 9. Volume 9, almost to volume 10. So welcome again to my diary. It's a very lovely day outside. I should probably be outside, but I'm inside for a very good reason. I did some good writing today. And I didn't have a great week last week, mainly because I've been working on, well, I've been working. I have jobs that I need to do to pay the rent so that I can write. Be a gentleman writer. And so it hasn't been a hugely productive week, but I did write a lot today, and I actually wrote most of my words that I'm going to tell you right now today. And I wrote 1,933 words, and that brings me up to a total of 22,208 words, which is super good for me. So that means I have actually finished the section 2, the rough draft of section 2, and I'm now moving on to the rough draft of section 3. And it's very good that I also did some pre-writing for section 3. I did some notes and thinking about what I was going to do for section 3 and really focusing on the character that I'm going to have for section 3. So I have a better idea of what he's going to be doing in that section. So that's essentially it in terms of my writing, but in terms of what I've been thinking about, of the major themes that I've been thinking about this week, it has been magic, and magic in a very specific sense. So, I mean, a few videos ago, I mentioned that I wanted to write something that would be worth my audience's while. Like, I want them to feel like this is actually something special and not just something that someone has written and they really want other people to read it. And so, and I've also been talking in the last few weeks about, I'm always thinking of, what I shouldn't be doing, what I should be moving away from, what I should be avoiding. I'm really trying to avoid these very banal ideas, or what I believe are banal ideas about meaning and beauty and truth. And I really want to avoid these things, because I feel like they can be very static, or you tend to be repeating the things that you just already have heard from someone else. And I want to do something different, And I feel like one way that I can kind of structure my work so that I'm trying to move in a better or newer direction is to think about the magic that my work is creating. And I do mean this in a very specific sense, because I think of it as like, an illusionist does create the feeling of magic, but they do it in a very specific and practical way. They use, for instance, when an illusionist makes you think that he's cut a body in half, he's using things, boxes, bodies, mirrors, and he makes you feel a feeling which you've never, well, never, but you rarely feel. And so I think that when I'm writing this book, that's a very good way, or a good model to think of this, that I'm going to be positioning various elements in various ways so that when a reader reads it, they think, or they get a feeling that this feels different or special in a way that I didn't feel before. And so when I was thinking about this, I have to think about, okay, how do you practically set this up? You don't want to just have like philosophical ideas. You think about what are some practical ways to create magic. And I think one of the key ways, and I probably mentioned this before, is through repetition. Repetition is a key way that we create magic. It's often, for instance, how magic, or the feeling of magic, is created in fairy tales. Things happen in threes, and the third thing is often somehow a change from the previous two. And so repetition is a very key thing. And I also feel like magic is also created when you recognize yourself in the work that has been created. So I mean, I have issues with this novel, but one of the things that I think he does really well is that he creates a feeling that you are recognizing yourself in this because he has so many banal details that really do feel authentic. You know, he writes so boringly that you're like, oh, this is exactly how my life feels. And it's, you know, it is the way I feel sometimes. Like right now, he's describing cleaning up his cleaning up his grandmother's house, and I'm like, I'm there. I've done these exact same things. It is this boring. Um, so there's that. There's recognizing yourself in a work, and unexpectedly recognizing yourself. You know, reading something or encountering something where you're like, oh, this person feels very different from me, and then going, oh, wait, no, they're kind of exactly the same as me, and that's really interesting. So. Those two things I'm thinking about. But the third thing that I really do want to focus on this week is what I feel like is kind of lacking from this, but is also present in something that I saw this week, which was the most recent episode of Mad Men, the one that came last Sunday. And, you know, one of the things that excites me about Mad Men, and hopefully I think is exciting you about Mad Men too, if you're watching it, is this feeling that uh, we are watching some of the moments before some of the characters become amazing. So, what I mean by that is, uh, you know, part of the reason why we hopefully everyone loves Peggy so much is because she, we get the feeling, at least we got the feeling early on in the series, that she in many ways is a genius, and we are just waiting to see where her genius will lead her, how it will blossom and develop, and she will eventually become something that is startling and amazing. And we are in many ways just watching the moments before this happens. And I mean, another character who's similar to this is Joan. You know, Joan did not feel like a genius at the beginning of the series, but what we are kind of constantly amazed by is how her the her capacity for growth, the amount of change that could be possible in what you thought was originally just a kind of, you know, a not particularly amazing secretary. And now she's becoming someone who's who's developing in all sorts of new ways that we couldn't have predicted when we first started watching the series. So, I mean, those two characters are very interesting in that respect. Once again, it is this feeling like we're seeing the moments before they become amazing, and part of the skill of the writers is that they're constantly deferring this feeling of like, oh, when are they actually going to be amazing? But then they also like occasionally dole out little unexpected moments where they suddenly do rise in their world. And I mean, the most obvious example of this is what happened to Joan in the last episode. So that I think is really interesting. And I mean, the other thing that Mad Men does is that it kind of subverts this whole trope with Don, because Don is the character who was amazing. He was at the top of his game, and he was, you know, everyone acknowledges that he's an incredible genius. And what this show, what you definitely feel when you're watching the show is that Don is going to be heading downward in some ways in this last season. There's definite feeling of foreshadowing and that he's going to be moving downward. But he, what is interesting about him is that we don't just feel that he's going to fall apart and that, you know, he'll just be thrown away, but that his falling apartness is in many ways, it feels like it's going to be an apotheosis for him, or like in some ways his becoming an amazing genius advertising copywriter or copy creator or whatever he is, was not actually not actually the summit of where he's supposed to go, but that by falling downwards, he's going to somehow spiritually, in some ways, transcend and become even more amazing in some unspecified way, or at least that's how I feel about it. That dawn is supposed to be somehow our feeling of how we can transcend all of our success in this world and move into some sort of greater sense of worth or being. So at least that's how I feel about it. And I think this is one of the key things, as I thought about it more, I think this is one of the key things about a good story is that in a way, you do have to keep delaying it. You can't ever really give the audience what they want. And even at the end, when you're supposed to be resolving everything, you can't just give them what they want because that will feel like a letdown. Because, you know, if Peggy or Joan just becomes a business person and everything is perfect, it will feel a little, I don't know, a little too saccharine sweet or a little too easy. I mean, the writers might do this. I have no idea what they're going to do. But I was actually thinking about how, you know, I don't often think of The Lord of the Rings as a very sophisticated narrative in some respects, but it actually made me think about the moment when Frodo is about to defeat Sauron when he's throwing the ring into the pit of fire at the end of the story. And what I realized is that Tolkien had set it up in such a way so that just at the moment when you think Frodo is achieving the thing he is meant to achieve in the story, you start to feel like defeating Sauron isn't actually all that important, and that what's actually more important is the spiritual journey that Frodo is going on, and that the moments after the defeat of Sauron are actually going to be interesting in some respect because we're going to be hoping or waiting for something else to happen to him. And I thought that was interesting to think about because we do often, when we have these stories that build up so much and we're waiting for the moment when our characters are going to blossom into something amazing and beautiful, and we're often left with the feeling that when they do, well, we're often left with two feelings. Either the writer avoids the whole issue and just doesn't resolve anything and we feel bereft, or they do and it feels too easy. And so a good writer is going to be aiming for somehow the middle of this, where you feel like the major thread that you were hoping for has been resolved, but that there has been a thread underneath it all the time that has suddenly gets revealed by the removal of the large thread that is suddenly the one that we're not necessarily going to have a resolution for, but that is even more important than the major one. And, you know, I'm not even close to getting to the end of my book, so these are issues that I'm going to have to, you know, mull over as I'm writing. But it did make me think very much about how I'm going to be structuring the chapter, even restructuring the chapters that I've already written, because I don't know if I'm successfully creating this feeling of growth and that something amazing is going to happen at the end. And so I have to perhaps go back and reconsider some of what I've written so that I can generate it more and create the feeling of magic that is going all the way through. So I hope that was interesting. I felt like it was interesting to me when I was coming up with it, but I never know with these things. So I do hope you enjoyed it, and if you want to get in contact with me, I always do want to get feedback. Please do send me an email at the email address in the description box for this video. Otherwise, I hope to see you, well, I won't see you, but I hope you see this video that I'm going to make next week, and I hope that I've written something so that I can talk about it and that I have ideas, and well, I'll come up with something. Anyway, thank you again for watching my video, and bye!